season. Those are the words of Dean Smith in a statement released to the League Managers Association this evening following his departure yesterday from Aston Villa after 3 years in charge. It came as a shock to many. A lot of people feel upset and very sad about it. The national feeling is that he was treated harshly by the Villa owners. But the question is, what happens now? Where do Villa go from here? Welcome to the West Midlands podcast here. Monday evenings where we have a look back at the weekend's action. I'm Ben Ellis. We have with us Jonathan, and we have Josh as well on the line. Good evening, gents.
Good evening, mate.
Okay. Promise we're not going to be completely Villa heavy this evening, but of course it is a huge story nationally. So Dean Smith, the announcement coming yesterday that Villa had parted company with boyhood Villa fan Dean Smith, and speaking from a fan's point of view, it's a bit of a he's one of our own and he's gone and we're kind of feeling it, but we talked about it on the podcast last week. Performances have been shocking of late, and it didn't improve any Friday night at Southampton in the first half. I was embarrassed at times watching that as a fan. You see your players passing a piece of paper around amongst themselves, thinking, "Who are we picking up? What are we doing?" And this is just not on. But Villa, they make the statement yesterday saying, and they were very careful in saying this, that it was the calendar year 2021, not the last 5 games. Villa had lost 18 Premier League games in 2021, which was a joint worst with Southampton. So they felt they had to ask. I'll come to Josh first. Right or wrong decision getting rid of Dean Smith?
I think for what the owners want, it's the right decision. The fans might disagree. I think your football that you're playing for the money you've spent is not matching up to their expectations. But I also think that some of the Villa fans that are more screwed on with how the land lies can see that he was getting to a point, and maybe with players that were injured and whatnot, it was holding them back. But yeah, I think with the money you've spent, he can't keep on living on the fact that he's a fan and that he's there like everybody else in the stadium. I think at some point you need to start having receipts for the money you've spent, and it hasn't been good enough for the money that you've ultimately spent on players.
Jonathan, we talked about this last week as well, the way it was going, and we were speculating on whether or not Dean Smith could come under pressure. The wider aspect as well of a quarter of the managers or head coaches that in the Premier League have lost their jobs. So are we looking at an issue with clubs just like Villa, or is it the size of the task of what's happening in the Premier League, meaning that owners and chief executives panic quickly?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, football is a results-driven business. 5 successive defeats doesn't look good for any manager. I believe, in terms of survival from the Premier League, it is the right decision. But yeah, I believe it is harsh on Dean Smith. It's got to be said. I mean, he's a boyhood fan. The same thing happened with Darren Moore, I believe, at our club. That he was a big fan of West Bromwich Albion. But, it's like I said, it's a results-driven business at the end of the day, isn't it?
Absolutely. Josh, is this the risk you take when you make an appointment, going back 3 years, when you make an appointment where the heart is as much involved as the head? Because eventually it's going to come to an end, isn't it?
It doesn't come to an end if you get results. It's simple as that. It's a results business. As much as he might be a Villa fan, if he's winning, he keeps his job and he gets another contract. He's not winning. So when you've spent the money they've spent, they're going to start wanting to see a return on that. Now, obviously, being a Blues fan, I don't pay a lot of attention to the Villa, but I've got a lot of Villa fans that are friends, and they're all saying the similar thing, that they didn't want him to go. But how long can you give a manager to turn it round? And have Villa in the past been a little bit slow to react? Are these owners that they've got now and their chief execs a bit more ruthless? Do they believe that they're a higher base club than they are? All these questions could easily be answered as yes. And the worrying thing, I think, for Villa fans is there's no clear front runner in this job. Obviously, with the Newcastle job being available, Eddie Howe's got that. Could Eddie Howe have fitted in Villa? Probably. So who's going to go and jump at the Villa job that wasn't prepared to jump at the Newcastle job with more money? Yes, the teams are different and Newcastle is a much bigger job, but the people that are linked to the Newcastle job, are they going to see the Villa job and thinking it could be as hard with the expectations on top of them? They spent a lot of money. Can they go and spend half as much in January? Probably not. So you've got to work with what you've got. And I think a decent manager in this league can get a tune out of them. So for me, I think the likes of Lampard, Stevie would do really well, but would they actually want to go there? So I think how do the club want to go with it is dependent on where they go. I know fans that want a long-term project, but football isn't long-term anymore. So it might be a case of having to accept an interim manager to keep you up and then look again in the summer.
I know the league table's taking shape now, but do any of us really think Villa are in the relegation scrap, or can they see whoever the manager is, can you see them pulling away from it?
I think in the scrap, you lose 5 games in a row, your confidence is shot and you're not playing to your potential. You know, Southampton are scoring 1 goal in the first half. You're not having an attempt afterwards. You've got talk of infighting. That's the recipe of falling further and further down. The teams underneath them are starting to pick up points, so it's only going to take 3 or 4 weeks and they're going to be right in there. So I think Villa fans have to accept they're going to be in a relegation fight. It's how you make this appointment. As if you get away from it or if you get dragged into it, you have the players to get out of it. It's how how they're used and how they're coached.
There are some scary parallels. There are some scary parallels here from from my point of view, the 2015-16 season. Tim Sherwood was sacked at roughly the same time in the season, and they kind of dilly-dallied over it, and they got Remy Gard in, which is. But the problem is the club was toxic all the way through, and the players arguably were nowhere near as good as the squad that's been assembled now. But if you're looking for omens. That season, Villa were 2-0 up at Leicester well into the second half and lost 3-2. And you go back to the Wolves game a few weeks ago, and you think, well, you know, is that the kind of the sliding doors moment which sends your season in one direction? And Wolves have had a stuttering start, have seemingly gone from strength to strength since then. So it's worrying in terms of the omens and the parallels. From that respect, looking at sort of the individual performances, the last 2 away games, and we did talk about this last week, the Arsenal away game, the first half, Southampton away game, were performances which, as a fan, and we've all seen our teams do this, and it's not just a Villa thing, and Josh, you'll attest to many of the games under Aitor Karanka last season, shall we say? Well. You know, where you can tell when even if it's on TV, it's radiating through the screen that they are not trying, and I can't take that. I can't deal with that as a fan.
Yeah.
And the question was to me, Dean Smith obviously gets into them at half time for those 15 minutes, and he gets a reaction in the second half. It wasn't scintillating, but it was a hell of a lot better than the first half. And there was a bit of an improvement at Arsenal as well, which got me thinking all through Friday night, obviously not knowing what was going to happen on Sunday. But I was thinking, what's happening at Bodymoor Heath Monday to Friday? If he's having to get into them to get a short, sharp shot out of them, to get a kind of a reaction, are they not listening to him Monday to Friday? Are they not taking on board anything that he's saying? You know, this is really concerning. But also, let's not forget, you lose your best player. Okay, you can lose your best player and replace him with 3 others. So arguably, the 3 that you bring in are going to be a third of the quality of the one that has gone, because the money talks. Those are the prices involved. So you have to kind of take that on board. You also lose John Terry and Richard O'Kelly at the start of the season as well, and they were. If you go back the 3 years to when the appointment was made, you know, this was the dream team, that the new owners have brought in Dean Smith as a head coach, John Terry as assistant, and Richard O'Kelly goes everywhere that Dean Smith goes. But they were very much seen as a package and a team. And I don't think you can just replace that dynamic, which was there, which was successful for the second half of the season in the Championship, just about stayed in the Premier League and then carried on. You can't just replace that with Craig Shakespeare and a set-piece coach, which we talked about last week.
No, of course not.
So there are issues. The one thing I would say for the ownership of Aston Villa now, we're doing on the parallels of the season that went down compared to what Randy Lerner returned Villa into. Obviously, it's chalk and cheese. I think these owners have got a lot more credit in the bank in terms of a metaphor rather than actual money in the bank compared to what Randy Lerner had. So you would imagine, and bear in mind, Wes Eden's half of the ownership owns a basketball team that's won the NBA championship. He knows how to be successful. He knows what it's all about. It's a different sport, but he's got that winning mentality, and it stands to reason to me that very successful people are also, most of the time, very ruthless people. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where I don't know if either of you saw the video that Villa released on Twitter minutes after the announcement that Dean Smith had gone. It was a package with music under it, and it was all the key moments from Dean Smith. So him getting the job, his first win, that wonderful Alan Hutton goal against Blues, Josh.
It's not wonderful.
It was
Craig Gardner, shocking. Craig Gardner,
actually,
absolutely shocking.
Do you know what? I sat there going back. I watched that and I'm thinking, yeah, I should be jumping up and down, but I see a guy like that in any game, and I'm thinking,
yeah,
no, you take him out. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Craig Gardner just decided to be a Villa player for that game. Just didn't want to tackle anyone. So
he had that out of body experience. Where
never forgive him for that.
Where he'd been before. Okay,
he could get Ronaldo to sign for us. He could do whatever he wants. I would never forgive him for that one chance. He's got someone running at him, laughing at him, and he just didn't even take him down. Okay. It's absolutely unforgivable.
Fair enough.
A horrible goal for me.
Okay, fair enough. So getting back to the video, so there's that. There's obviously getting there's the playoffs as well. Jonathan, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me about that one. The penalties, yeah.
The penalties, yeah. But the final and then in the Premier League, getting to the League Cup final, staying up on the last day, left out the goal line technology against Sheffield United, which I thought was interesting. Which I think for balance you should mention. Which you should mention. For balance. But obviously, and the things, the 7-2 against Liverpool last season, but you've just sacked him. But you've made a video that within seemingly 5 minutes of announcing it, you put this video out on social media saying, thank you, you've been amazing, we wish you well in your future career and endeavours and everything.
Yeah.
But I've made audio packages for radio for years. And I imagine television packages are a lot more harder and time consuming to make. It doesn't take 5 minutes. So I was thinking, was this decision actually made on Saturday, having played on Friday night, and they've said to Dean, look, keep quiet, we'll put this video out and we'll give you an absolute wonderful send-off? Because I'd hate to think that he was going into an international break, trying to ponder how he was going to put this right in the game against Brighton. It gets announced that they've sacked him, and all the while throughout Saturday they were making this video, because I think that would be cruel, to be honest.
Yeah. From our point of view, I didn't see any videos like that when we sacked Bilic or Allardyce or any of our previous managers. It's just a bit weird from Villa.
There's a simple reason why them videos weren't made for the managers, because they're not fans. That's the only reason why it's been done. Because he's a Villa fan. That's exactly the reason why. It's because it's a little nuance, little thing to keep in the media of, oh, look how brilliant Aston Villa are. They've sacked the manager, but they've given him a little bit of a pat on the back. But he's not a fan. They don't do that. It's as simple as that.
No,
the wheels are in motion long before it actually happens. So they've probably looked after the third game you've lost in a row, thinking we need to do something here. This isn't working. You've just said as well that you think they're cutthroat. This is proven that they're cutthroat. they've let a fan who's a manager lose 5 games, and then that's enough. So what would it have been if he wasn't a fan? Would it have been earlier? Yeah. So he spent a lot of money. Yeah. The money he spent, I think he should have got a lot more out of them.
I think another example as well is if you take the final day of the first season back in the Premier League with the getting the result at West Ham, where for many weeks after the lockdown, West Ham were touch and go as whether or not they were going to stay in the Premier League themselves. And you look at where they are now, and you look at what they've done, and where, I mean, not ultimately. I said at the start of the season, I think you'll see with West Ham what happened to Villa under O'Neill is I don't think they did enough in the transfer window, and I think the Europa League stuff will catch up with them. But for the here and now, I think West Ham are amongst the talk of the league in terms of what they're doing and sort of what they're achieving. And I thought it was we mentioned the 2 games, Arsenal and Southampton either side of the West Ham one, but it was 4-1, and for a lot of the time it looked like men against boys, and I think they must have been looking at that thinking, that's what we want to be doing. That's where we want to be. And okay, maybe Dean Smith can get us to that, but it doesn't look like it's happening at the moment. But that's where we want to go. And I think to look at, and I have nothing but admiration for the job that David Moyes has done at West Ham. And I mean, you think you talk about Villa panicking, go back 8-9 years to Man United panicking. And that's obviously a different story altogether. Yeah. But I just felt looking at that, that's where we want to be. We're not there. West Ham are, or they look like they're going in that right direction. So
beating Liverpool is always a plus.
Well, I didn't include. Yeah. Well, the second had already happened before that game had started. Yeah. But I just think it's interesting. And so where we go from here, you mentioned a couple of names in the frame: Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, Roberto Martinez. The problem I think that they've got is that apart from a squad that they've spent a lot of money on and an academy system which many people say is the envy of a lot of clubs in the Premier League, Villa actually haven't got that much to offer a top name, and I think that's possibly where they're going to struggle with this appointment, Josh. I don't know about you.
I think touching on your West Ham point, what did West Ham not do in the close season? They didn't lose their assistant, and they didn't lose their other coach. Yeah. They've kept Stuart Pearce, they've kept their people around them. Maybe that's what's been Dean Smith's undoing, that he's lost his his left and right hand, and that's what was keeping you going. Maybe Dean Smith on his own with Shakespeare isn't the answer. Maybe it's John Terry. Maybe it's not.
Maybe. They have sacked David Moyes once, West Ham, and brought him back. So there might be hope for Dean Smith yet within the next 2 or 3 years. But if we're going along with those kind of parallels, John Terry, of all the golden generation England players that are going to become manager and coach, which is a term I hate regarding the Sven-Göran Eriksson time, but Gerrard, Lampard, and Terry, and whoever else wants to become a coach. I think Terry would be obviously the best fit. He knows that a lot of the players that are in the dressing room, and maybe could get a kind of an instant reaction out of them. A lot of Villa fans are unhappy at the thought that, you could get Steven Gerrard, but he's really after the Liverpool job one day. So Villa could be seen as a bit of a stepping stone. We're not stepping stone. We're Aston Villa Football Club, and I think that's what they're saying.
This is Steven Gerrard you're talking about. This is Gerrard, who's an absolute god in Scotland at the moment. He cannot do no wrong for Rangers fans. Half of them. So to have the mindset that Steven Gerrard is almost winning the lottery to manage the Villa is a narrative I cannot get behind, because every club he goes to, unless it's Liverpool, is a stepping stone towards Liverpool. His contract at Rangers matches Klopp's. So it's almost seen as an unwritten rule that he will go to Liverpool. As soon as Klopp goes from Liverpool, Gerrard's going to Liverpool, yeah. Absolutely. So a club that jumps in the way of that is going to be a stepping stone. And if it is the Villa, they have to accept that. If they don't, I don't think they get Steven Gerrard. I don't think he even entertains the idea that he can't jump to Liverpool if they come knocking. I don't think Gerrard works for you short term. He might work for you long term. But what you need is someone to react to what's going on now. Terry does know the club and he does know the players, but has he got any experience in a relegation battle? No. For me, if you want to guarantee your survival, you go old, you go someone who's clear in the ways, and then you stay where you are.
Yeah,
I know where you're going.
There was one name I was
throw a
thinking
name
of.
out.
He recently lost his job for Middlesbrough.
No, I won't go that far. I was going to go Hodgson, Roy Hodgson. You put Hodgson in, he'll keep you up, he'll keep you solid, and in the summer, you look to then move on from somebody else. And for Hodgson, would you like another little crack, another 6 months, 8 months here? Probably. You probably wouldn't, but if you want someone to guarantee you survival, it's Roy Hodgson.
I thought you were going down the
football would be horrible.
I thought you were going down the Allardyce Pulis route there for a second. I really did.
No, I think I went further with Warnock.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a bit, Jonathan. Don't worry.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. So, Gerard, this was another thing this morning. I was having a look at the betting comparison website, and he's clear favourite. Now, I know the bookies are generally not wrong. I mean, results on this morning. I think he's around about sort of 2-1, 6-4 kind of price now. But he's well clear in the betting. Now, usually that lends the notion that somebody knows something somewhere. But I can't fathom why. I'm not saying he's not in the running or shouldn't be a contender for the job, but I can't see for Steven Gerrard what puts him that far ahead of the rest of the other candidates that have been mentioned. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Villa fans betting on it. That's all it is. I got suckered into that when John Terry was a free agent and Redknapp was dropping all the hints physically possible. He's coming to the Midlands. He can manage the club after I leave. I put about 20 quid on that. And where did he go? Went to the Villa. It's whoever puts the most bets on. The bookies think, well, we're going to cut the odds here. We've clearly got people backing it. I've been sucked in the past. I don't think one begets the other. I think it only begets it when he's on the Holt end and he's got a flag above his head. Until then, everything is happening and everything isn't happening at the same time. But I just don't see how you get Gerrard now. You might get him in the summer, but I don't know how you get him now. Outside in the middle of the season, no. I can't see him turning his back on Rangers.
I don't think Rangers would be too pleased with Villa going after Gerrard. To be honest,
Well, but again, we're talking cutthroat, ruthless businessmen.
Yeah,
they don't care what Rangers think.
No.
Go back. Pay for it.
Go back 25, nearly 30 years. Doug Ellis didn't care what Leicester fans thought when he went and got Brian Little. Didn't give him monkeys. That's the man I want. I'll pay what I have to pay, and I'll get him in. That's.
But will you?
As much.
But will you play an overflated price for a manager when there's no guarantee that his first job in the Prem will be what you need him to be?
I honestly don't know. What I was going to do to end this section, and we'll move on, is just to ask each of you. It's a week on Saturday at Villa Park, 5-3. Who is standing in the dugout for Aston Villa?
That's a tough one.
Who's your youth team manager?
Mark Delaney.
I think it might be him.
And he's done a great job with them as well.
I think it might be him. I don't think he'll get done.
That's
with
interesting.
The lack of...
Yeah.
Why would you do it right at the start of the international break if you weren't going to have somebody in place by... that's another name that's in the frame is Graham Potter. The next game is Brighton. So, I mean, if they're serious about that, if they're serious about that, then I think you might be right in saying that somebody from inside Villa could be in the dugout, and they might have a good look in the other dugout at Graham Potter that day. If that's what they want to do. But as I say, it's all speculation, and we'll move on. It's a story that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Just from my point of view, as a fan, thank you to Dean Smith from where they were in the Championship when he was appointed to where they are now. Anybody who goes to manage a football club, your initial goal is to leave the club in a healthier state than when you arrived, and I think he's certainly done that. So I think we'll give him all the kudos that he's worth and he deserves. Going to move into the Championship, and since you weren't here last week, Josh, and we'll kind of mix it up a bit. We'll go to Blues now. Yeah. We'll come to the on-field issues. It sounds like I don't want it to come across that I'm having a dig as a Villa fan, so I'm going to be quite careful. What's wrong with the ground? Why can't they get things sorted out? I mean, a half-hour delay for an electrical issue on Saturday, and you just think these fans have suffered enough. They just want to watch their team. What's wrong with you?
It's just we're run by people that haven't got a clue about what they're doing. The people that were positive in the club have been removed. They've been employed people that can't stick to promises. I think it was a technical issue that was based on the wireless connection, which basically links everything together. So basically when you have fans getting stamped to come in either with a ticket office or with your season tickets, it's all linked together. So when they don't work, the doors don't open. It's just from start to finish, this whole season has been an absolute joke off the pitch. We've bargained basement ball, and it's okay. It's not amazing. It's been passable. The stadium has been left to rot basically for the whole tenure of TTA and whoever else owns us. It's a long, convoluted structure that I could go on for about an hour and a half about. Fundamental issues with the club are basically they put the money in keeping the stadium ticking over. So with that, we've then had basically have to deal with what we've got. So they're saying it's asbestos. We've only got that from Troy Deeney talking about it in an interview. The club haven't actually said what is wrong with the stand. Villa fans like to make a joke about a hole been in the roof. There's been holes in the roof the whole time, so that's not the case. It's basically we can't get safety certificates off the enforce them. We can't fulfill at all. So that's the problem. There's been continuous delay, broken promises, and it's just overall a very poor season from the outside. And the football gradually gets better, but then there's always a bit of a dip off. So all in all, it's been a little bit of a hard season to withstand at the moment.
We'll come on to the football in just a minute, but I'm amazed that, and I've worked match days at Birmingham City at different capacity. I used to work for one of the well-known betting firms that took bets on the day. I've done work in the press at Birmingham City, so I know it. I know the place. This will interest nobody, but my current day job, I was interviewed in one of the executive boxes at Birmingham City, so I know it. I know where things are, and I know what's happened. To think that the Upper Tilton and the Cop are uninhabitable by paying customers, yet the main stand opposite, which has been in a state of disrepair for the last sort of 25 years, which even Sullivan and the Golds tried to get planning permission to redevelop, but the council wouldn't give it to them. That's okay, but the Cop and Tilton aren't. You know, I've had bits of the roof fall on my head in that stand when I was working there. So, as I say, I'm not a Blues fan, but it would drive me crackers. On the pitch, it's been relatively fine in recent times. Obviously, a 2-1 defeat on Saturday. We were talking last week amongst ourselves as comparative neutrals, Josh, that you're always going to have a chance if you've got Deeney, Jukovic, Hogan sort of up front. It's just a case of how much trust you have in the back line that's seemingly been there forever to collectively put in a sort of an 8 out of 10 performance. And if they do that consistently, then you've got a chance of picking up a result. But we know who these players are at the back, and they're not going to be that all the time, because for a lot of the time they've been in relegation battles in the Championship. I think Josh
Seems
might
to
have
lost him. Yeah.
Oh, do you agree with what I said there, Jonathan?
Yeah,
Just while we get it back?
absolutely. I agree 100% with you. We seem to have lost Josh there.
Yes, I
But
think
yeah,
see if he can come
absolutely.
back.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, you need a good back line, and if you haven't got the back line, then you're not going to get the results. And it proved it on Saturday against Reading. They were 1-0 up, Birmingham was, and then 2 goals in the last 20 minutes, and they come away from that game with nothing. Reading go back up to the Medeski with all 3 points. So yeah, without a decent back line, mistakes will creep in. And, no matter how good your strikers are, I mean, we said this last week with Deeney and Jukovic and Hogan, no matter how good your strikers are, if your back line's not up to scratch, then, of course, you're going to let in silly goals and you're going to start losing games.
Yeah, I think we're going to be able to bring Josh back in right now. There he is. Marvellous stuff. I think he's fed the meter and he's got his internet back up. And,
Sorry about that. I think they had the same system the Blues had on Saturday.
Just say, no, we were just saying, and we'd like to get your thoughts on this. That the way it's been going lately, with when you've got Deeney and you've got Hogan and you've got Jukovic, then you've always got a chance. But at the same time, at the other end of the field, you've got the same defensive setup and structure that's been at the club for sort of 4 or 5 years. And even Lee Bowyer has said himself that there are times he watches them and he feels that it needs refreshing. So if you can get a collectively sort of 8 out of 10 performance out of the defence, then you've got a chance with picking up goals at the other end. But they've shown historically that an 8 out of 10 is not going to happen week in, week out with that back line. And that's seemingly where they came a cropper on Saturday.
Yeah, we can't ball. Oh, no. It's constant lump ball. It's absolute, just straight up the pitch. There's no short passes. There is nothing cute about the way we play. It's just, I've got the ball, I've got to lump it up for upfield. It's all just like they've got a hot potato at the feet. The issue is we have defenders that are very limited. They would probably struggle in League One. So you're never going to be able to improve when you've got centre halves that have no issue or no thought in playing a short pass to a centre midfielder. They just want to lump it up to Deeney and assume that he's going to control it with his head, bring it down and run 20 yards. It's not going to work. It's even worse when Jukovic on the pitch. I think he can control the ball with his head like it's going out of fashion. The one short ball we played on the floor into Hogan, he scores. We don't do it again all day. The one chance we try and put to Deeney, it's always expected to score an impossibility. It's infuriating, and it's every manager we have never fixes it because he hasn't got the money to go and buy players that need to. At some point, the ownership are going to have to either get off the pot or do something, and it's infuriating because it's so simple to fix. We need to have ball players. We need to...
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? Because the makeup of the side defensively, the kind of players that Gary Rowett was scratching around from that he knew in the lower leagues when he came in from Burton. He's gone again. But that's where they were shopping at the time. And as I said, they haven't freshened it up. I was just saying, Josh. Sorry, the makeup of the back of the defensive side of the game at Blues, I should say. The players that Gary Rowett was shopping around for when he came in from Burton, the players that he knew from sort of League One and League Two, and they haven't freshened it up in any real way since then. I don't think he can hear me. No. There we go. Can you hear me, Josh? Oh, the magic of live TV. This is great. So, as I say, international break.
I was just going to say with the whole budget thing, stadium issues aside, because they're obviously having to spend money to fix the stadium. Is there actually enough budget for them to buy decent players at Blues? I mean, they might have to give up some of the transfer budget obviously to fix the stadium. So I don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, you
We
don't know
just,
the actual financial
we don't
situation
know.
of Birmingham.
We don't, and we haven't known for years. This is the
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah.
it's and to be honest, it's been going on. It's been going on since the days of Carson Young, and it doesn't really look like changing. If Josh does come back to us, we'll continue to talk about Blues and what's ahead. But we did say on the program last week that if you go into the Hawthorns this weekend, you might have a bit of a stiff neck when Neil Warnock plays Valerian Ismail because the ball's going to be in the air a lot. You were there.
Yes.
For the 1-1 draw. Is that what happened?
Pretty much. We tried to make something of the game and a defensive mistake in the 38th minute, and all of a sudden Middlesbrough were 1-0 up. But yeah, it was mainly like we were trying to make something of the play, but Borough had set up, just like Hull on Wednesday, they had set up to absolutely frustrate West Bromwich Albion. And basically, I mean, if it wasn't for Dean Garner's goal, it would have been a first home defeat this season. Thankfully for Dean Garner, and to be honest, at the end, last 10 minutes, both teams had chances to win it. It could have gone either way, but in the end, I'll take the points. Not particularly happy that Fulham and Bournemouth both won because they get further away from us. But I think at the moment, I think the Albion fans would take third as a finishing position right now, because it means, we'll still within a chance of promotion via playoffs. But yeah, it was a lot of hoofball and Sam Johnston mopping up loose balls and just blasting it down the field.
Which is the way it has been all season, seemingly under Valerian Ismail, which we talked about on the program sort of last week. Doesn't seem to be a plan B either. I think. No. I heard some Albion fans on the radio saying that this brand that they can't deal with, they can't stomach.
No, I mean it's similar to like Tony Pulis, as I said last week. It's very similar, trying to play out from the back, trying to do the one-touch passing, but clubs have wised up now. And as I said, both Hull on Wednesday and Middlesbrough Saturday, both teams had set up to intercept every single pass that we could muster. And basically they just set up to frustrate us. We got lucky, to be honest. I think we got lucky in both games with the 1-0 against Hull and the 1-1 draw. When we was 1-0 down, we managed to equalise. I think we did get lucky with both those games. But yeah, it's just the theme at the moment at the Hawthorns. Opposite teams and are just setting up to frustrate.
The one thing I would say, and sort of looking for positives here, you mentioned the game midweek against Hull, is that for the first time that I can remember, because I did a red button job. You do a red button job midweek games on Sky, and you can watch whichever game you want. So although I said I wasn't going to watch, I actually was. But it was the first time I noticed where it's bang average in the first half, and they improved. They did improve second half, and that's the first time. That's the first time I can honestly say this season I've seen that from them.
Yeah, absolutely. We got into most of the Albion fans I spoke to before the whole game thought it was going to finish like 3-0, 4-0, even 5-0, because Hull at the time were playing so bad. They're bottom three of the championship at the moment. They're still in single figures for the points for the championship. But yeah, it was basically that they had set up to frustrate us, and it was a case of we've paid money to go and see the Albion play good football. We thought it was going to be 2-0, 3-0, and we couldn't even get a goal in the first half. Same with Middlesbrough. We scored both our goals in the second half. So I did notice in both games the second half was much better than the first half. So my question to Valerian Ismail and the team is, why can't we play as good in the first half as we do in the second?
Yeah, definitely. And we started talking about managerial departures. This one was bizarre on Saturday with Neil Warnock leaving Middlesbrough, because it was announced pretty much on the final whistle, but he was still doing the post-match media sort of duties.
Yeah, I didn't even know
weird.
till I got back home. It was a shock to me, and I got back home like half an hour later, and that was the first time I had read about it. So it was a bit of a shock.
I'm going to change the subject to the logistics of getting out of the Hawthorns and being home within 30 minutes. How do you do that? Because it always takes me 2.5 hours. Because
I'm one of the first ones out. I beat the and I walk along the main road. So I'm a pretty quick walker. So
okay.
So yeah. I'm one of the first ones out. I just get out of there, beat the crowds.
The train and the metro station are an absolute nightmare for a good couple of hours after the game. If anybody knows the area, but if I can't leave, I'm working. I can't leave.
Yeah,
I can't say that. Yeah, I'm going to nip off.
And it kind of helps that I live, like as I said, half an hour away from the stadium. So yeah.
So what's happening after the international break for West Brom?
I think we've got who we got next. Let me just call it up.
Huddersfield.
Huddersfield away. Yes.
They've had a couple of rough seasons in the Championship since the relegation from the Premier League, but they seem to be more solid this time round. 8th place in the table, 7 points off of Albion. But I tell you what, I'm looking at the Championship table. It's very tight in the middle of the table in terms of the playoffs, isn't it?
At one point, there was like 7 teams on 21 points at one stage. So it is very tight.
You got QPR in 6th, and then you've got Millwall, Blackpool, Luton, Swansea, Forest, Middlesbrough, Blues, and Preston. That's down to 17th. All within 5 points of the playoffs.
Yeah, it is very tight.
Championship's great. I know you don't. If you're in the Premier League, you don't want to get relegated, but that's proper football. That's a league table. That is.
We all know Bournemouth and Fulham are running away at the top at the moment, and we know that Hull, Barnsley, and Derby, with their points deduction, are kind of feigning at the bottom. But yeah, mid-table to playoffs is looking very tight at the moment. One win or one defeat, and you could jump or lose. You like 7 or 8 places.
Indeed. Yeah. So I don't think Josh is going to rejoin us. I think his internet has finally given in, and we will leave it there. Just obviously we don't have a Wolves contributor on the show, but a 2-0 defeat at Crystal Palace in the Premier League on Saturday. From what I gather, Palace much the better side. Wolves sat way too deep and tried to hold out for a draw, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, and I'd like to mention a good goal from Conor Gallagher, who was on loan at us last season.
He was.
So yeah, really good goal from Conor Gallagher. Glad to see he's still improving after leaving the Hawthorns to go back to Chelsea.
Yeah. So we are at the parts of this. I hate international breaks. I cannot bear them. But as I say, Villa have got the time to try and find who they feel the right man is to replace Dean Smith. Chance to get some injured players back as well before the next round of fixtures. There'll be more talk about this on the Box to Box podcast tomorrow, which you can follow on your local TV. I'm sure they'll talk about the England squad.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it did make me laugh when you read sort of like social media and people are outraged at who's been picked and who hasn't been picked in the England squad for the 2 mighty games that England have got to secure qualification at the World Cup. And I was like, let's be honest, they could pick the 3 surviving members of the 1966 squad who are all in their 80s, and they could go 3 against 11 against those teams, and they would still beat them.
Yeah.
So don't worry. If you want your favourite player to get an England call up, well, as I say, it's Gareth Southgate, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I just don't think I don't think you need to fret about San Marino and is it Andorra, I think.
I know I'm biased here, but pick Sam Johnston over Jordan Pickford. I know I'm biased.
Yes. It's funny with Jordan Pickford, is. I mean, we will finish up in just a second.
Yeah.
I never see, when I watch Everton, the goalkeeper that I see for England when I'm watching Everton. It's weird, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, my missus didn't care about football at all. But when a tournament comes around and she gets into it, so it was the same with the Euros in the summer and the World Cup. Jordan Pickford's her favourite player.
Yeah,
she loves Jordan Pickford, and I say, you want to watch him for Everton for 9 months. You know, ask a Toffee. We've got enough of the lads on the Box to Box podcast to tell you what they think of Everton performances and Jordan Pickford.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there we are. I think that's on the light note that we will leave it there. Thank you to Josh who left us to Crazy Shadow 303, which is Jonathan on Twitter. You can find me there, West Bromwich Albion fan. Myself, Ben Ellis at Ben Ellis 1982. Sure. Well, we'll probably be back in a fortnight. Definitely. We've nothing to talk about next week unless Villa have made an appointment.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
But from all of us, enjoy the rest of your Monday evening, and we will talk to you soon.
Yep. See you later.